Welcome to Smut Talk, the podcast, with your hosts, Abelina Sabrina and Kate Miggle-Patrick, a.k.a. the Smut Librarian. I'm just kind of coming over from Twitch, because apparently they don't love Smut Talk over there on Twitch. They weren't a big fan. I just wanted to read my Ice Barbarians in peace, and guess we gotta do it here. So that's fine. Most of the time, I'm on Twitch or YouTube. Usually, I do, like, political commentary or just, like, comedy bits. And lately, a lot of smut. Usually, I get my recommendations from TikTok or my co-host, Kate.
Yeah, we've definitely been talking a lot about smut lately. I have a degree in English, and then I also run a smut book club called Literal Trash. It started off as a normal book club, and then we just kind of kept voting.
Wait, it's called Literal Trash?
Yeah.
You never mentioned the name of it.
Oh, yeah. I guess it doesn't come up that much.
Why is your book club called Literal Trash?
I let them vote, and that's what they voted on.
You know what? You tell me about how the voting goes in your book club from time to time, and, you know, sometimes democracy isn't the best way to go about things.
Well, that's why we started reading smut. It was supposed to be a normal book club, and then they just kept voting for smut. And so now we've just accepted it and embraced it.
Okay, well, I would vote for that as well.
It's fun. It's fun. It's really been a lot more enlightening than I thought it would be.
And you know what? If smutty books are what it's going to take to get me to read a little bit more, then so be it.
Yeah, you're expanding your mind and your preferences, I guess.
I think Kate is the one who really got me into smut, honestly.
I think you're right, but I don't actually know how.
I don't remember how either. And the thing is, I've read smut before, like in high school when I didn't know that I was reading smut. But
wait, what did you read in high school?
I didn't know what I was reading. It was this book called The Scoundrel. Come on, with a title like that, how are you not drawn to it? And it was from this series by author Claire Delacroix, which now I wonder if, like, maybe that's where they got it from on Bridgerton, because she was a smutty author. But yeah, I actually highly recommend it if you're looking for another smut book. Then I took a very long break, and now we're back at it again. I think it's because you recommended A Court of Thorns and Roses. I think that's where it started.
That's definitely it, yeah. Not that that's like the smuttiest of novels.
It's not the smuttiest, but it does have one of our favorite book boyfriends.
It does, yes. The Marvelous Rhysand.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, how do you say it?
Rhysand?
Rhysand? Yeah.
Rhysand?
Rhysand? I don't know. Now I'm questioning everything.
That's okay. And that's the fun part about, like, when you're reading something. Some words, you're just going to read them a certain way in your mind, and then you hear how other people say them or how whoever else pronounces it, and you're like, well, that ruins it.
Yes. Like Hermione's name back in the day.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people were messing up her name.
Yeah. I think I said, like, Hermione in my head.
Hermione?
For years. For, like, 4 years or something.
That's a unique name. I remember my sister would call her Hermione. Yeah. Which is kind of close, but not the best. Not that that's smut at all. That is very much not smut.
Well, I mean, maybe if you read some of the fan fiction like I did.
I have never read Harry Potter fan fiction.
Oh my gosh. That was the golden era of fan fiction, because the internet was, like, still kind of new. That might actually be my first encounter with smut.
Really? Harry Potter fanfic?
Oh, yeah. And, like, the fan fiction gets probably dirtier than the books that we read.
Oh my gosh.
There's no rules. It's the Wild West.
I could see that. Because especially, like, when I'm looking for recommendations for, you know, my next smutty book, Smut Talk is definitely, when I say Smut Talk, I mean, like, Smut Talk, like, on TikTok. I try to look for recommendations on there, because whenever I ask people for recommendations, they'll recommend fanfic. And it seems different. I don't know how to put my finger on it.
No,
but I don't know. Like I want like a book.
Me too. Yeah, I definitely want to read like a physical book, especially because fan fiction really builds off of the world that's already been created.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I kind of like it when they start from scratch and build their own world.
I like that too.
Speaking of worlds, this is a really unique one.
Yes, our very first episode, we're diving into a very, very unique world, a very unworldly world, and that is the world of Ice Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. We love Ruby Dixon around these parts. Clearly that is her pen name. She's one of those mystery authors who doesn't show her face, but I like it. I like the way she writes.
I do too. No, I originally read this book about a year ago, and I reread it before this podcast, and I was surprised at how actually well it's written.
Me too, because after you read a few books here and there, you really do start to compare. And not all Smut books are created equally. Ruby Dixon has really, refined her craft. We like her very much. And so, just a warning for people listening, there will be spoilers. This book came out in 2015. There's gonna be spoilers if you haven't already read it. So pause this podcast and go get the Libby app or something and read Ice Barbarians, because we're diving into it. And we're gonna turn over to Kate for a quick recap on what exactly happens in Ice Barbarians.
Ice Barbarians starts off with a group of girls who get abducted from Earth, and it's implied they're going to be sold into slavery of some kind, whether that's sexual or maybe they're just going to be eaten by whoever they're sold to. But the plane or the spaceship, it crash lands on this mysterious planet, and the girls are left alone. And then they encounter this group of very large blue males. I don't think you could call them men. Very large blue male aliens who kind of fall in love with them because there's a shortage of females in their species.
I feel like that was the fastest recap ever. You didn't even go over the poop bucket. You didn't go over how much they love pussy. You didn't.
Oh, well, I mean, we're going to discuss all of that, of course. We have to get around to that. But yeah, that's like an overview, a very non-spoilery overview, I guess.
You know what? That is a perfect non-spoilerly. Spoiler. It doesn't spoil anything, because obviously I first read this book when I was just reading to Twitch, and we called it our Smut soiree, and so I was reading it out loud for the first time. It was a lot of people's first times. You always remember your first time. And I got banned from Twitch because it was sexually suggestive content, even though we were reading it for comedic purposes. And there were so many scenes that were just so funny and unrealistic, because hello, they're big icy barbarians. So I'm very surprised that I got banned. But the one thing that always stood out to everybody that I still see references to all the time is the poop bucket. I don't know why poop bucket stood out amongst all the stuff in that book specifically, but poop bucket.
That didn't really stick out to me. But yeah, so while they're stuck on the spaceship, they're not treated very well, and so they all have to poop in the same bucket, which they empty periodically. But I guess it's it's back in the olden days, Bridgerton times. What were those called?
The chamber pot?
Chamber pots, yeah.
But at least in those days you had your own chamber pot.
That's a good point.
Not to dive too off into other universes, but I was recently reading Penelope's book in Bridgerton, and there was a point where she was getting on Colin. They were having an argument, and he's like, "God damn it, Penelope! I was with the chamber pot. Is that what you wanted to hear?" And it's oh my gosh, no. But yeah, chamber pots is basically what they all had to share. And it wasn't even just for pooping. It was for everything, all kinds of waste, because clearly they were also sick, so they were vomiting. Ew. And yeah, so okay, enough about poop bucket.
Mm-hmm. What a place to start, though.
And that's the thing about Ice Planet Barbarians as well. Like, they're not meant to be read straight-faced. You're gonna have a silly, fun, steamy time.
Yeah, like there's definitely a bit of like nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
The males in this book are all in love with sex. And like, okay, yeah, you could argue that, like, hey, that's almost every single male, even not barbarians. I kind of like admire the way that these like hunky barbarians approach sex, because clearly they always want to bang. They care a lot about like their mate's pleasure. Trigger warning, the fact that rape doesn't exist on this planet is amazing, considering how much these barbarians are constantly thinking about smashing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a little bit of a fantasy, isn't it? Like you know, they meet these giant blue aliens, and all the aliens want to do is like pleasure them orally. Which, I mean, I'm sure we've both experienced. Like that isn't super common. I mean, right? Like,
No.
I mean, like it's common, but like not to the extent that the blue aliens.
No. And you know what? There have been like men in the past who are like, oh yeah, eating puss is my favorite thing. I could do it forever. And then, you know, whenever it actually comes down to it, it's fine. It's whatever. It's okay.
What, like it's serviceable?
It's like the guys who talk a lot of game when it comes to like going down, they bite off more than they can chew.
Wow. What a visual.
Yeah, oh no.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. They're not quite barbarians about it. But yeah, it's not a thing. And you know what? I don't remember what podcast it was. I think maybe it was like Bobby Lee or something. I just saw this clip on TikTok where these guys were being, you know, it was just guys on the podcast. And they were specifically talking about how if it's just like a hookup, like they don't care whether the girl gets off, and that like it's just not a priority.
Wow.
And so like one of the guys was just like, oh yeah, I accidentally made my wife come. And I was like, oh, cool.
What?
And everybody else was just like one of the guys was just like, oh, that's weird. And then the other guys were just breaking off into, no, yeah, I mean, I don't usually prioritize, you know, the woman getting off. Like, unless we're like maybe in a relationship, I'll try to be a little bit better at it. But if not, then I don't bother.
I mean, like,
Oh my God.
but okay, so what kind of podcast was this?
It was, what do you think, Kate? It was like one of those alpha male.
Oh, okay. Like,
Kinda.
kind of red pilly, maybe?
I think it was a little red. Well, you know what? It was a little incel-y kind of at the
Yeah.
same time. Or at least one of the guys was kind of incel-y, because the guy was just like, I don't make my wife get off. And
That's
then the other guy
crazy.
was just like, well, I don't make her get off, but that's on purpose.
Yeah, that's awful. Like,
Both of them are awful for their own reasons.
you would think that it would be almost like a point of male pride. Like, look what I can do.
Exactly. Like, why are they so proud to say that they can't get women off, like, when they're engaging in...
Or that they don't. That's the worst part. It's like it's a choice.
Like,
don't
if they
know.
choose not to? Well, yeah, one of them was just
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, I don't even bother trying.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. So.
Definitely not like our blue aliens here.
No.
Bechtel's the
Well,
hero of the first story.
He absolutely is. But you know what? I gotta say, and I've only read Ice Planet Barbarians. I've only read the first one. And the novella that's supposed to, like, technically come after the first one, where it's still
Oh.
about Vechtel and Georgie.
Oh, I haven't read that one.
I don't know how much, like, I like the book. I like most things about it for sure, like everybody else. As people, like, characters, they're well written. But Georgie, I don't think I like her that much.
Oh, really?
And you know why? I think it's because when I was listening to it to prepare for this, I listened to the audiobook. Bitch sounds like Reba.
Reba? Like McIntyre?
Yes!
No!
This whole time, I didn't know she had, like, a southern accent.
She's from Florida. She doesn't have a southern accent, right?
She has some sort of... Florida's
She's
the
from-
South?
But, like, she's from Orlando. Do people
Is that, well, I don't even know. Well, how does she make that accent then?
If anyone's from Orlando who's listening, like, hit us up on social media. Let us know if you have an accent.
And she's from Orlando, or does she?
I guess she lived there.
Okay, because she has some sort of accent. I don't know where it's from, but she's got something going on. Yeah. That's what the narrator for Georgie sounded like in the audiobook, and I couldn't get over it.
No, narrators can like make or break a novel.
100%. I know we're not talking about it right now, but like I think I told you when I was reading Electric Idol, the Neon Gods book about Eros and Psyche, I couldn't get through that whole. I mean, obviously I did listen to the whole book, but the fact that Eros, the hottest god of pleasure and lust and love, the fact that his narrator sounds like Prince Charming from Shrek 2, I just couldn't. That's just the end of the sentence. I couldn't. So yes, a narrator can make or break it.
For sure. For you. Yeah.
But Vectel's was good. Vectel had a good voice because they used a male voice actor.
Oh wow! So they actually had two different narrators.
Yeah, which I really like when smut books do that. Well, I think it makes more sense to do it because some smut books do that cool thing where they'll shift POVs like Ice Barbarians does.
Which is really interesting, like in terms of the structure, because you can hear, kind of both sides of the coin.
Absolutely. And it's nice because my favorite smut books so far have been written by women, and so when a lot of these are fantasy, so they're writing these men, and when they're written by women, they kind of nail what a general audience wants to hear from these male characters, where compared to like I don't know if I would like them the same if like a man wrote their POV. I'd be very curious to see like what if a man and a woman wrote a smut book together and the woman wrote the female POV and the man wrote the male. I'd be so curious to see like how it would differ.
Yeah.
I wonder if that already exists.
I don't know. That's very specific. Like
I'm going to try to find that.
Have you ever been on the subreddit Men Writing Women?
Yes.
In
the past, yes.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think a lot of them have trouble, writing things from a female perspective or even just writing about women in general.
Yeah, because the thing is, like with the male gaze, it's very visual. So they're going to describe like her boobs popped open and they bounced boobily as she boobed up the stairs.
Well, and I can tell you too from... there's another subreddit, and I may be revealing too much right now, but there's another subreddit called Gone Wild Stories.
What's that?
So basically people just go on there and they write like a little snippet of a sexual experience in their own life.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so, and I can tell you that ones from the male perspective are usually very centered around like, and I'm sorry for the terminology that we're going to use on this podcast, but like they're very centered around sucking dick.
Really?
Yeah. It's all about the dick sucking, and like very little about pleasuring the female.
Of course,
typically. Of course.
That's like the lowest priority on the poll for them, if it's any priority at all.
Yeah, but I haven't actually read any actual books from male authors that are like centered around sex. Oh wait, I take that back.
What?
We just read those dinosaur books.
Oh no! What's the name of that author? Is it the Tingle guy?
It's not the Tingle guy. It's another guy who's very, very similar. The book was called, it was like My Billionaire Dinosaur Boss Forced Me Gay. Hunter Fox, maybe? Something like that.
Something with the fox, I think you showed me.
Yeah, I think it was like Hunter Fox, but it was only like 15
That is such a man pen name, by the way. Hunter Fox.
Oh, yeah. It was a very interesting book.
We're going to have to do an episode about that.
I'm going to need a lot more like stamina for that one.
Okay.
That was a lot.
I need to read them.
It's a series.
Maybe we could do that for like the next one then, so that way it'll still be fresh in your mind, and then I'll just read it. Because you said they're short.
They were only 15 pages, so I can always reread it in the future. We may have to work up to Dinosaur Smut.
Wow, okay.
We start off with aliens.
I'm going to trust you on that.
Maybe we need like a little stepping stone.
We're starting out with aliens, but you know what? They're chivalrous aliens.
They're chivalrous and they're humanoid, really.
They're chivalrous, they're humanoid, they're hung, they have ridges in places.
Yeah, can we talk about that anatomy?
Yeah, let's talk about how the barbarian anatomy is kind of like, it is alien, but it's clearly meant for pleasure, which is interesting because that's not normally how anatomy develops.
That's a really good point. Yeah, so they have the ridges, all, kind of like all over their body in like normal places, but they also have the ribbed penis, ribbed for her pleasure, I guess you could say. And then as well as like the ridges on their tongue.
Oh, there's ridges on their tongue too?
Yes, that's.
Oh, I missed that.
They mentioned that in like the first scene in the cave. But like, I mean, it is very obviously like a sexual ideal. If you can make your own character, like the way Ruby Dixon is doing here, it's her sandbox. She can do whatever she wants. She's created like kind of like the ideal sexual partner.
She really did, because they have ridges in all the right places. They've got horns to hold on to. He's got like a special like bony bump at next to like the base of his
spur
of his dick.
The spur. We have to talk about the spur.
The spur. Oh, the spur.
It's like a little, like, I guess like a little nub right above his penis, which obviously like provides, like clitoral stimulation if you're having missionary sex, which you don't really, get a lot with the human species.
No, because if you're gonna do that while, having sex, that takes extra effort.
Yeah.
And some people will do that effort and others won't. And
but sometimes you just have to like, take matters into your own hands. Literally, sorry.
Exactly. It's built in, although I'm sure if Vectel didn't have that little extra spur, then he would definitely be taking matters into his own hands as well.
Oh yeah, like you can tell he was very generous.
He is very generous. We love a Vectel. Speaking of Vectel, I think he had some of the funniest terms for like certain anatomy when it came to like and I want to make this a segment too that we can do like on each episode regarding like whatever book we're reading. I want to go through like what is the funniest like term for anatomy. And in Vectel's case, I think when he was talking about her clitoris, which he had never seen before,
yes.
When he called it a third nipple, I fucking lost it.
I died.
Like, third nipple. And like, I will be totally honest, like the first time I read that was when we read it on Twitch, and chat was just driving me wild saying the thriple? No. Even better, the clipple.
No.
So I know clipple technically wasn't written, but clipple is absolutely what I think about whenever I think of Ice Planet Barbarians now.
The clipple.
The clipple! And it's kind of perfect.
Well, I thought that was actually really confusing because he's telling all of his alien friends about this third nipple. And I'm like, what are they going to think? Like, because like nipples are used to feed young. They're used to feed children or babies, I guess. And obviously that's not what a clitoris is.
That's probably the least sweet thing that Vectel did. That he kiss and tells. He kisses that clipple and he tells.
He was actually like, I don't know if you remember the scene where he told them that he's like, that was the only thing he was going to tell them. Everything else was like his little secret.
Okay, never mind. Well, I guess that's fair then, considering, like, if there's, like, an extra thing right there, you're going to tell your friends. Okay, I guess I get it. I remember a long long time ago, I went out with this one guy, and obviously, I'm not going to dive into all the details, but I do remember, and I've told a few people about this since because I thought it was so interesting that above his shaft, he had a tattoo of mistletoe.
Oh my gosh. I mean, like, that's funny, but that's a commitment.
Right? Oh, yeah. I don't know if he regretted it. It's been many, many years since I've seen him.
You should ask.
But I think he got married.
So we'll never know.
You know.
If you're out there, Mystery Mistletoe Man, let us know. Was it a good decision or do you regret it?
I mean, he seemed to be content with his decision at the time.
Mm-hmm. But you gotta wonder, like you know, as you age, how do your feelings change about that?
It's not like your job is gonna see it, you know, or I would hope.
Yeah, it's a good place for a mistletoe tattoo.
I don't think they would see it, but I personally thought that it was the funniest, cutest little thing. The tattoo, not him. No. I actually don't remember those details, but I remember the tattoo. So Vectel, I guess I understand why he would want to talk about, you know, the clipple. You know, you don't see something like that every day.
It's true, yeah. You read a lot right now, right? And not just smut.
No, I pretty much just been reading smut, Kate.
That's fine. I'm not judging you. One of the things that we see a lot these days, and I mean, like, you read the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, the fated mates trope, which is kind of like the soulmate trope. And that's one of the things that we see here, where inside of Vectel, he has this quee, I think that's how you pronounce it, that will reverberate in the presence of his mate. And I'm curious, like, do you like that trope?
It's kind of sweet in the books that, like, we've read so far. But when it comes to Ice Planet Barbarians, I don't know how much, like, it really applies to, like, fated. Like, is the queen, because the queen is just like this kind of parasite thing that just, like, lives in your body, and clearly, like, these women are aliens to that planet. Even the barbarians aren't meant to be on that planet, which, you know, spoiler, I mean, you find that out in the first book, but they're not meant to be on that planet either. So it's confusing. Like, is it just kind of like, this is one of your best possibilities? Will the quee resonate for only one person ever? Or that's what I didn't understand about Ice Planet Barbarian specifically. But again, I only read the first book, and characters in this book are very limited.
They did say that, like, the quee, so basically what the quee does is that it picks out, like, your most fertile female or male that you can procreate with. But it did say that it is one person for life. He said that at the very, very end. But I don't know how that works, like, you know, if, like, your partner dies or something like that. But I'm curious, like, how does that work in a romance where it's almost like you don't really have a choice? It's like, this person is yours.
What if you don't like them as a person or something? There's not that many people in the Ice Planet Barbarians universe. So I wonder, like, if they were exposed to, like, a real population like we have on Earth of, like, 7 billion people, like, would they still only resonate for one single person?
Right, and, like, how does the queen decide that?
Yeah.
I think it brings up, like, an interesting idea of, like, if you're meant to be with someone, then the possibility of being with anyone else is off the table. And, like, you know, that kind of erases a lot of doubts from your mind that, you know, like, you or me might have if we were in a relationship. So, like, especially for a romance novel, it's kind of cozy.
I do like seeing that, especially, like, in other novels, similar to, like, A Court of Thorns and Roses, the series. Seeing that, it does, like, really solidify the couple. But I will say, whenever there is one of those, like, fated mate tropes, it starts to get a little cheesy when it comes to the pet names. I don't know, like, I get that you're mates and you're soulmates, but then when they start calling each other my mate, it's like, what are you, a wolf? Like, it's I don't know how to describe it. It's just something, like, it gives me the ick a little bit when they call each other my mate.
Like, it's a little cringe.
It's a little cringe.
Yeah.
Like, I support the whole mate thing, but then once they call each other my mate, I just, it sucks me out a little bit every single time.
I kind of like it.
Kate?
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those tropes that I'm fully behind. Like just the term, I don't mind. I don't know. I think it's really interesting when it's just like you don't have a choice. This is your person forever, and you just have to deal with it.
What happens if like you're mated with somebody that like you don't like or you're not attracted to? Like, is that possible?
They said that happened with like one of the characters, like one of the aliens. The two aliens were mated together. And they said that they didn't like each other at first, but then they just like, I don't know, I guess grew to love each other.
In Ice Barbarian series?
It was a couple that was like already established. I forget who it was. I don't know if it was like the healer and her husband. But yeah.
No, they weren't mated.
Oh, really?
They weren't mated. Like, because it was the healer lady,
Mm-hmm.
and she was with Vectel for a long time, and then all of a sudden she resonated just randomly. And that was another thing that also confused me. Like, how do you resonate randomly for somebody that, like, you've known for a long time?
I don't know. I guess your little worm just, like, decides, like, yeah, this guy.
Like, this is the right timing.
Yeah.
So I guess, like, you can have, like, loving relationships beforehand, and then they just have to end, and everybody just has to accept it once it resonates for somebody else.
Yeah, but like at the same time, like what a great way to break up with someone. They're like, I found my soulmate. You're like, oh good, I'm not your soulmate. Okay, bye.
Have you seen the movie Timer?
No. Wait.
Oh my gosh.
I don't remember it if I have.
So I don't want to dive too deep into it, but basically what happens is everybody has a soulmate, and it's like it takes place on Earth. And there's like this company called Timer where they will install a timer like onto your skin, like on your wrist, I think, and it's a countdown timer until you meet your actual soulmate. And so for some people, it's like the coolest thing ever. And then for others, it's very anxiety ridden because it's like, hey, I'm happy with my current relationship, but there's a timer that says I'm going to meet my actual soulmate soon. And then some people, they get their timers and it just reads 0 because it means you already met your soulmate, but you don't know who it is. Towards the middle and the end, you find out that some people will just straight out like rip out the timers from their skin, and then they just end up choosing their own relationships because they prefer having the freedom of choice than the anxiety of this timer. But like for some people, like their timers will go off when they're meeting like their significant other's new spouse or something, and it's oh shit. I mean, their siblings' new spouse. Yeah. So it's like the idea of like fated mates, it's definitely sweet to me. But my head that just keeps on racing always wonders about these stupid little gaps.
Yeah, like all the times it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Well, luckily, I think Ruby Dixon, I think she's written like 22 books, right? You know, her world is safe. Like, we're going to be okay there.
I really like Ruby Dixon, and I hope that we'll be able to get her on the podcast sometime. We've talked a little bit, like when I was initially like reading her stuff on Twitch, got her blessing, and then she read the articles when I got banned for reading her books, and she wasn't happy about it. I think that like, okay, I think we have a little relationship here. I think she might like to come on someday, hopefully. I mean, not even just Ice Barbarians. I read another one of her books regarding like a battle god, and that one was also like quite spicy. I like Ruby Dixon a lot. I want to read more of her work.
I do too. And like I read a lot of smut for my book club, and a lot of it is like, I don't know, just not well written. But like no, I went back and I read Ice Planet, and I was like, this is actually really compelling. It like really sucks you in, and it's so funny. Just like the dialogue between the characters, I find it just like so hilarious, and like such a, I don't know, it really brings some levity to like a dark situation.
Absolutely, because there are some books where they try to make, you know, like funny situations, and the situations like will be funny that characters will get into, but when it comes to like actually making funny dialogue between two characters,
it's hard, yeah.
But Ruby Dixon really mastered it. Like, I think if she wasn't a smutty author, then she could probably like be a comedian in a different facet. You mentioned that you had a very specific line from the book, a standout line, if you will.
It wasn't a monster come to eat me. It was this monster who's come to eat me out. I just died.
Ruby Dixon is so talented. That sentence is so perfectly structured.
It's fabulous. I loved it so much. There was another like echo to that line, like a while before, like, I forget when it was. I think it was whenever they, like, crash land on the planet. And she goes, I really hope these aliens aren't going to eat me. And I just kind of snorted.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, just
How
you
did
wait,
you
sweetie.
even catch that?
I mean, I guess I read it before, so I knew what was coming. Or who was coming. Sorry. I had to.
Okay, so you reread it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. You read so fast. I had to do it on audiobook, but I'm telling you, the narrator she sucked me out of it because I swear to God, she sounds like Reba.
If I can read a book, like, physically, I'll do it because I feel like a lot of the time the narrator gets it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've seen that happen before. I still think that she was pretty good at what she was doing. I just couldn't get Reba out of my head.
Mm-hmm.
But like in other books, like A Court of Thorns and Roses, like I think the narrator was very talented, but she was also a little monotonous.
She was very dour. Like, she was, like, real depressed, which wasn't fair. Yeah, like, I mean, Farrah would be really depressed, especially at first. But yeah, like, it just really, I don't know, it kind of bummed me out.
Yeah, she sounded the same when she was depressed as she sounded the same when she was happy as well, which A Court of Thorns and Roses, there's like spicy moments in that. When reading through the spicy moments, it's like, I can't tell that this is a happy, excitable scene for you.
You really need somebody special to record those sexy moments in books.
I mean, obviously, like, I'll read the smut books, like, with my eyes, but sometimes, like, I will read audiobooks, like, if I have stuff to do. Mm-hmm. And so some narrators really get in to the smut scenes. Like, they'll be, like, moaning and groaning, and it's interesting. One of the best books that did it was maybe the Hades and Persephone one, A Touch of Darkness. I think they did a really good job by getting into it. But in terms of, like, the worst one, not even A Court of Thorns and Roses, I've got to say it, as much as I like them, the Bridgerton books. It was so unpleasant. I like the narrator 95% of the time because she just sounds like a British old grandma. But the 5% of the time when she is narrating the smut scenes, it is so weird to hear your British grandma narrating smut to you. It's so weird, Kate.
I mean, that's totally fair. Did she get really into it? Like, was she kind of like, you know, talking sexy at all?
Yeah, she was talking sexy. And especially for like the smut parts where it's like the male is talking to the woman. Obviously, like, I was reading the second book after, you know, Bridgerton season 2 came out. And so I was listening to the book. There was this part where the narrator was like, "Oh, Kate." And nope. I had to press pause and just laugh and skip ahead because I could not do it.
That's definitely an experience, though.
It was an experience. I don't want to have it again. But it's like, especially like when you know like how hot and hunky Anthony is in the series, and then you read the book and like, first of all, he's not even as like nearly as good in the book, but also you've got this old British grandma narrating. So it's just, it's so many layers of weird.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate because the show is so good.
Exactly. And you know what, I'm happy with, and maybe we should have this be its own episode, but I'm happy with the direction that the actual show took compared to how the books were. The books feel quite dated.
Yeah, they're from a while back, right? I've only read the first one.
I think so. And that just makes you appreciate Ice Barbarians more. Like, they got, like, I love when audiobooks get, like, a male narrator for the male parts. I think it helps make the experience a little bit more immersive.
Have you, there's this one audiobook, I think it's called The Games We Play, and it's read by this guy with this super sexy voice.
Really?
Yes.
The Games We Play. Yeah, I'm all for hearing like a sexy narrator. And that's why like I was kind of excited for that Viper Den of Vipers book. At first, it was like this hot sounding Australian guy, and then that book just took a weird turn that maybe it wasn't for me, but yeah, we should do a separate episode on that one because it's so popular on Smut Talk, but
which book is that?
The Viper Den? Or Den of Vipers?
Oh, Den of Vipers, yeah. I've heard that book recommended a lot. Is it just a little bit too much?
Well, I'll tell you in the episode whenever we cover it. But I will say, at the very least, like, the narrator is unique and interesting to listen to. But Bechtel's narrator is very good too. I like him. Nothing really stands out like, oh, I gotta listen to more of this guy's voice. But he definitely doesn't underperform either. He's like a satisfactory hookup, if I had to explain his voice. Well, yeah, like,
that's perfect.
Yeah, they get the job done.
Well, sometimes that's all you can ask for, really.
Is it?
So, another trope that we see in this book, and that I think is repeated a lot in romance novels, is like this very strong, capable man who's like caring and nurturing and like usually rich if it's like set on Earth. And then like a really weak woman. And so I'm curious, like, what do you think of that trope? Do you like it?
I see it a lot as well. I guess it just has to like explain why she's weak. Like, there's normally like a very big reason, a reason that can't be helped, at least in the books that I've been reading, as to like why she's so much weaker. Like, she is a human and he is a barbarian alien in this specific book. Or in A Court of Thorns and Roses, again, she is a human and he is like a fantastical being, like high fae.
Twilight is like the other example that I think of, like, where she's also a human.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, that's kind of like how they explain away like why he's so much stronger. It's never just like he's stronger because he is man and she is woman. Like, there's always like a supernatural reasoning as to why he is stronger. But then something that is also kind of cool about all these books that have this trope is that eventually the leading woman has something happen to her where she gets strong, and sometimes even stronger than him.
You're so
and
right.
It's always so cool and impressive. I love when they flip it on them and like she grows. I love that character development.
I didn't think about that at all, but you're so right. You know, because I was thinking that maybe it kind of, because like, you know, these are usually female authors. And maybe it really speaks to like our desire as females to be cared for, to be like taken care of, not have to worry about anything. But you're right, like the woman always becomes as strong or stronger in the end.
Yeah, maybe in the beginning it's like, oh, is it the desire for women to be taken care of? Or is it just that she doesn't have the same tools that, you know, the men do to be as strong? And how does she thrive? Like, does she still heavily rely on the men once she is finally strong, if not stronger? And usually, no, she doesn't need to rely on anybody, and she has like insane like confidence, growth, and that's always fun to see that, because I feel like that does happen a lot. It's like, ooh, she's self-sufficient, and then especially when like her male lover or whoever, it's so sweet seeing him be like impressed and proud of her, like, oh, she's so capable, yep, that's my wife. Like, that's so sweet to watch.
Yeah, it's like almost like kind of like himbo energy, where they're just like, you go, girl, you got this.
Exactly. Like, I think that's closer to what women want. Like, yes, like, help us if it's something that like we can't help ourselves. We want to be capable of, I don't know if I'm speaking for all women. I do want to be like more capable and self-sufficient, and I would just, you know, like your support, and then once I get there, continue to cheer me on.
Yeah, I think things have really changed in romance novels as well over the past decade. Yeah, like back with Twilight, I feel like a lot of romances were very much like that one-sided dynamic. But these days, I think it's more about them being equals, which is like so lovely to see.
The thing is, like, we all read Twilight. We all pretty much liked it when it was happening. Mm-hmm. And then we either reread it or we rewatch it now, and it's like, we enjoy it for nostalgic purposes now. Or I don't know if I'm speaking for anybody else here, but that's the enjoyment that I get out of it. I recently listened to Midnight Sun, the Edward POV of the first Twilight.
What is that like?
He sounds like a fucking serial killer. He sounds like a self-loathing, really annoying serial killer freak. And he is not attractive at all. And he like puts Bella on this pedestal. And it's so interesting. At first, like when I would watch Twilight, and maybe we should have a Twilight episode on this, so I won't go too deep into it. With Twilight, like with Bella, sometimes you can be like, well, She's kind of bland. Kind of boring.
Oh, yeah.
I don't get why Edward would be so into her, but when you listen to it from his point of view, it's like, oh no, Edward's a fucking little freak. They do deserve each other.
That's like the best take, honestly, of Twilight. That would be great. No, I love that take of Twilight, though. It's not that Bella's boring. It's that Edward's a weirdo.
He's a fucking weirdo. Oh, can we please have a Twilight episode?
Yes, please. That would be lovely.
Oh my goodness.
I'm so curious about Midnight Sun as well. I haven't read that one.
His narrator for the audiobook, he's supposed to be, like youthful-ish to some degree. And it's like this man who sounds like he's 50.
Oh, no.
And his voice is very deep. We already know that Robert Pattinson was cast. Can you at least try to find something like similar-ish? Maybe not exactly like him, but maybe in like...
In their 20s?
80s?
Yeah.
Or something?
Yeah, get close to their age at least.
Get close to their age. Like... Yeah. But oh my gosh, yes, we have to do a Twilight episode.
Okay, let's do it. I love that idea.
Okay.
Love it so much.
Okay, did we cover everything for Ice Planet?
The last thing I want to talk about is like the ending of the book. At the end, they decide to accept the Qui, which means they can never leave the planet. What did you think about
that? Seems so rush.
Right? They were just like whatever.
There was one girl who was just like, yeah, I have some questions. And then Georgie, of all people, was just kind of like, no, you haven't gotten with the program yet. These girls are traumatized and now they have to just accept that they're stuck on this ice planet with these blue aliens. Give them a minute. Clearly, you've had time to process it. They haven't. And then all of a sudden, everybody's just like, all right, let's commit to this. It just feels like the ending was very abrupt and fast, and it's a little weird.
Yeah, like they decided very quickly. They did say at the very beginning that like these were women without any family close, so like it kind of like excuses like, oh, we're gonna miss our families or whatever. But yeah, I was really curious like kind of how that, I don't know, plays into the novel. Do you think that there's something appealing about them not being able to leave?
Appealing?
Yeah, like I guess I'm thinking of okay, because like they're leaving Earth behind, and like I mean, especially right now, I don't know if I would want to stay on Earth either. And they leave it behind for this like primitive world where it's very much like almost like a caveman era. What is that saying?
Yeah,
like what is appealing about leaving Earth behind?
I think it's the fact that that's most likely their only chance of survival is what's appealing. Because I would much rather be on Earth as we know it than, live in primitive technology style. But then also, like, there's the appeal of having, like, your soulmate or whatever. I don't know. Would you rather live with your soulmate in primitive times? Or would you rather live life as we know it?
I mean, if you factor the soulmate in there, I think that's, like, a pretty easy decision. But also, I mean,
Wait, that's an easy decision? Wait,
if you factor...
No.
Okay,
that's not
also,
an easy decision.
But like Earth is a dumpster fire right now. Like, do we really want to stay? I don't know.
I have one word for you.
Okay, what?
Antibiotics.
But you have the Qui. The Qui keeps you young and healthy.
Is that what it does?
Yeah. It said that their life is prolonged.
It heals you.
It heals you too. That's actually a very good point, though.
Okay, I didn't know that about the Qui, but also I was going to say the internet, but I don't know about that because I feel like my brain has just gotten worse since the internet.
That's true. I don't know if I could live without Uber Eats. Like, that would be the hardest part.
And that's the thing. Like, you could never have any of your familiar food ever again. That would be so hard. Right? Like, because what are they eating in those caves? Like, most of those guys eat, like, random-ass meat raw.
They have spices.
Yeah, but their spices are different.
Yeah.
Maybe if you could, like, have seeds. Well, also, because, like, your shit wouldn't grow the same on that planet either. It probably wouldn't survive.
It's true. I wonder, we didn't really learn about, like, the professions of the women who were stuck there. Maybe one of them is a chef.
I know that one of them was, like, a farmer.
Yeah.
But I don't know how those skills would be helpful, but...
Maybe they can grow something in their little, like, oasis.
Grow something on an ice planet?
Well, they have like that oasis where like they have like the hot springs.
Oh, that's true. So you would choose to live in primitive times if you had a soulmate versus living in the modern times without a soulmate.
Yeah, like if the choice is like going back to Earth, where it seems like these women don't really have families, they're young, they don't really have like good jobs yet because they're 22. So yeah, I don't know. The soulmate, it tips the scales for me.
Dang, I think maybe we're in different spots in our lives at the moment, or I'm just like, soulmate, what's that like?
Maybe I'm just romantic.
Aw, Kate.
It's not true. I'm very cynical.
I love a good romance too. And that's the thing. Kate, if you went back to these times, you wouldn't have any smut books anymore. None.
Well, the only solution is to become the author of all the smut.
That would be your new role in that time.
That's a prestigious position.
Listen, everybody would love it, clearly, since all of them are so sex obsessed.
Exactly. You would earn bank. Or like, I don't know, scraps of meat.
Yeah, I was going to say, do they have currency?
Probably just trade. Maybe, lots of furs. They would like gift you lots of furs.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, it's cold there, so I could see how a fur would be nice, I suppose. I forgot all about this about Ice Planet Barbarians. I'm so glad we read this for our first book as the intro to our first little podcast episode.
Me too. It felt like a really good starting point.
I want to ask everybody who's listening if you have any recommendations for smut books that we should read and potentially cover for a future episode. Please let us know. We're at Smut Talk Pod on all socials, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Our email is smuttalkpod@gmail.com. Please let us know your recommendations, because we're always scouring either TikTok or wherever to find our next smut book. What should we do for our second episode, Kate?
Maybe we'll get a really good recommendation. I don't know if we should go weird or do something more normal. Should we go weird or should we go
classic? Because I definitely do want to tackle A Court of Thorns and Roses, but I don't know if we should do the whole series or if we should do like book by book.
Oh, I don't know. Those are like my favorite books.
I loved them so much since you introduced me to them. I think we should go book by book because there's just so much in each one whenever we tackle those. Mm-hmm. Yeah, each book really has its own stuff going on.
Well, you mentioned a few this time. You mentioned Twilight, you mentioned Bridgerton. So we have options.
When was the last time you read Twilight?
Oh, God. I originally read them, I think I was 17 or 18.
I feel like that sounds about right. But also, Twilight doesn't even really have smut, is the thing. That's like, true. Maybe the very last book.
That's not what people are tuning in for.
It is a slow burn.
Oh gosh, it's the slowest burn. And then it's a fade to black, isn't it?
Because even like the smut books that we talk about, they're not like the smuttiest books.
It's true. I saw that mentioned. I was watching like some TikToks of Ice Planet today. And so I mentioned that everyone says Ice Planet is like so sexy, but it's really not. Like if you read a lot of smut, it's very like heavy on plot. And there's like a few smut scenes thrown in there.
Definitely a lot more smut scenes than I was used to, say, after A Court of Thorns and Roses. But it's not the smuttiest. I recently read one called Conquered by Clippy. You know, the clip from Microsoft Word. And that one was almost all smut. So...
What, there was no plot? I don't understand.
It was a very short plot, and we can get into that at a future episode. Yeah, maybe we need more spicy recommendations.
Yes, I would love some recommendations.
Send us your spicy smut recommendations at Smut Talk Pod on Twitter and TikTok, and Smut Talk Podcast on Instagram.